Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas, Collins, LLC.
Welcome to the noon meeting of the Rotary Club of Baton Rouge for July 15th, 2020. I'm your club president, Haggai Davis. Today's invocation will be given by Matthew Laborde, followed by the pledge and the four-way test by Kenya Messer.
Hello, everyone. If you could please join me for the invocation and bow your heads. May we who are merely inconvenienced remember those whose lives are at stake. May we who have no risk factors remember those most vulnerable. May we who have the luxury of working from home remember those who must choose between preserving their health or making their rent. May we who have the flexibility to care for our children when their schools close remember those who have no options. May we who have to cancel our trips remember those who have no place to go. May we who settle in for a quarantine at home remember those who have no home. During this time, when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other or shake each other's hand, let us find ways to be the loving embrace of God to our neighbors. Amen.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and the four-way test. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Okay, we have a couple of announcements first. Every member of our club should have received an email Monday asking you to vote yes or no to leave District 6200. This came about after multiple years of frustration trying to work with the leadership of the district. In this year's District 6200 budget of $86,400 from the dues, 77% of that money is dedicated to overhead instead of projects and programs. We've researched other nearby districts and none have that level of spending. In an effort to save the district some overhead expenses, we offered space in our club's office for free instead of paying rent. And when that was rejected by the district leadership, we then suggested a virtual office, and that too was actively campaigned against us by the district leadership. We have since communicated with Rotary International via email, phone, and virtual meetings to explain what is going on in our desire to leave District 6200. We were given guidance from Rotary International that we would first need a vote of the members of our club, and that's what's happening now. If you have not done so, please vote either yes to leave District 6200 or no to stay in District 6200. There will be a reminder email going out on Thursday, and the voting will end on Friday. Last week, I did bring up the fact that we want to do the tacky tie, and this week is another one out of my closet. Yes, it's right here. For those of you old enough to remember the flying toaster screensaver, well, this is a tie with the flying toasters. And yes, it's very, very tacky. So if you have, ladies, if you have scarves that you feel are rather tacky or any kind of accessory, neckwear, men, go grab something out of your closet. You know, everybody's got something in that closet that's just, oh my God, really? Take a picture of it, send it in so we can have a little bit of fun while we're doing this this whole thing together. There is going to be a service project Friday morning on July 17th at 8 a.m. at the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank. The area will be volunteering in, will be just for the Rotary Club volunteers, so we can be very safe while we volunteer there. We will finish about 11 a.m. If you need to come a little early or a little later, that's fine. If you cannot participate, but are interested in helping in another way, they are in need of canned foods. Canned vegetables, canned meat like tuna or SpaghettiOs or something along those lines. All of these are especially helpful for seniors. You can safely drop them off at the food bank if you can't come by and participate. you should have received an email on Tuesday with the details on how to sign up for this. So now we're going to have Chris Kirkpatrick come on and introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Hope everyone is doing well in these very challenging times of COVID-19, and that you're doing everything you can to find a way to put service above self, even during these challenging times. Today, we're fortunate to have Don Pierson, who is the Secretary of the Louisiana Economic Development Department, LED, to be our speaker. Don's a very effective and efficient leader. He's been in this process for many, many years, trying to find a way to make sure that Louisiana is the best that we can possibly be and the most outstanding in what we can do to bring new jobs and businesses to Louisiana. Don has been the head secretary of LED since Governor Edwards took over in 2016. And prior to that time, he was with the Blanco and Jindal administrations as the assistant secretary. And so he knows what he is doing. He's a good friend, and I've got to know him and seen him in many ways. Just a couple of the accolades I can bring to you about him is the fact that over the past 4 years with Governor Edwards, he's been able to create, along with other ones around him, he has a very outstanding staff, over 40,000 new jobs, over 36,000 retained jobs, which is very, very important, and over 42 billion, that's B with the boy as in boy, $billion worth of new capital investment for Louisiana. And one thing people overlook about what Don does too is his complete understanding, I think, of the importance of workforce education. It's not going to do us any good to trying to get people to come to Louisiana and not have them educated and trained, our workers. So John has put a big focus on that for these years that he's been in charge, not only of LED, but as the head of it, but also as an assistant secretary there. A little background on Don real quick. Don was went to West Point about the same time the governor did, so they're very close and they are very focused, and you better get ready to march with them when they march. And that's why he has been so successful. Also, Don has been very involved in the fact that besides going to West Point, he was also an airborne ranger in the 82nd Airborne. So that adds even more to me gravitas. Whenever he says move, you move. He has a direction, he has a will and a way. But now Don's on a new mission, and something that's extremely important for us right now, not only as Rotarians, but as Louisianians, and that is to what do we do now in the situation with COVID-19 to make the best of the situation we can while it's here with us? How do we strengthen our and make resilient our state as in all sectors of the economy to get it ready to break out and be effective and grow once this COVID-19 leaves? So Don is a co-chairman of the Resilient Louisiana Commission, which you'll hear more and more about, particularly today in the future. And they're taking two things. They're taking the situation now and working through all the different sectors and making sure that it is ready as it can be and working now to break out, because this could be a new paradigm once we move out of COVID-19. Then when COVID-19 moves out and we're competing again with all of the other states in the nation, we will be resilient in making sure that Louisiana moves forward in the most effective way that it possibly can. So Don, we welcome you here today. We look forward to hearing from you. And we want to also make sure you let us know as leaders in the Baton Rouge area what we can do to help you make Louisiana more resilient. Don, the screen is yours. And thank you so much for the great work that you do.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Rotary Club of Baton Rouge, for allowing me the privilege of spending some time with you today. I do have a lot of information to share with you, and there'll be some great resources that we'll talk about along the way. Chris is correct. Workforce development and education and reskilling and upskilling are all very important elements to what's been a big part of driving Louisiana's success in recent years. And in fact, we finished 2019 really strong. So to walk into a tough set of circumstances that we're confronted with right now, we're going to deal with it. And before I really get into the nuts and bolts of the program, I just want to take a moment to recognize one of your leaders, Mike Manning, and recognize Mike as also being president and CEO of the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank. And this kind of plays into a lot of what's going on around us right now, and trying to understand that families, these children at home, that going to school for them represents really one of their connection points for food, and in many cases a primary source of food. And the parents and caregivers of these children are also out there trying to manage stretched household budgets. And the Baton Rouge Food Bank runs this great program called the Backpack Program, with backpacks that have food in them that they send home with the kids on Fridays, typically at school, to help them make their way through the weekend. Well, with COVID closing all the schools, the food bank's ability to actually distribute all that became disabled. And at one point, they have 1,500 or so backpacks filled up and then stacked up there at the food bank's warehouse. But through innovation and teamwork and getting colleagues together, working with industry, I think it was BASF and the officials over in Ascension Parish, they set up drive-through locations where the parents could actually pick up the food for the kids, and just a tremendous success, and a demonstration of compassion and teamwork, and the kinds of skill sets that are so important during this current crisis. So just shout out to Mike for leadership and service in that regard. And I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that my Deputy Secretary, Brad Lambert, is also one of the leaders and been chairman of the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank during 14 and 15. But LED fully understands the importance of this great community contribution and recognize it specifically during this pandemic as a key element supporting our community today. So we'll talk today. I chose to not give you death by PowerPoint, but so just to help kind of frame for you where we'll take the conversation over the next 30 or so minutes. We'll regard first what Chris touched on in terms of the establishment of the Resilient Louisiana Commission. I'm a co-chair with Terry Sterling, and I want to outline to you the important work that has been done, what we are in the midst of at this very moment, and what that will do for Louisiana in terms of the objectives that we're achieving with the Resilient Louisiana Commission. We'll pivot then a little bit to talk about one of my other multitasking favorite things, being the Chief Executive Officer for Louisiana Economic Development, and continuing to strive to put together a vibrant economy here. We've done a great job of that over the last 4 years, as I touched on, but it's sort of a chutes and ladders kind of a situation we find ourselves in now. We've got some tremendous challenges ahead, so I want to talk to you a little bit about LED's COVID engagement and response, and then also a little bit about the way we see the world changing, and that change is always both danger and opportunity. So we'll visit a little bit about that later, and then I hope to be able to save a few minutes for some conversation or questions that you may have. And I think those will be sent in via social media. So hopefully somebody's kind of told you how to access that, given that we have a few minutes towards the end of this presentation to engage on that front. So things are not good right now. And the market update that we have to share with you is pretty discouraging. While the economy added a few jobs in the U.S. economy last month, lowering the unemployment nationally to 11.1, we still have millions of people unemployed. The number of people unemployed estimated by the Congressional Budget Office predicts that may go as high as 38%, could be as high as 26 million people out of work, and that the effects of all of this will linger late into 2021 as the U.S. experiences lower economic output and higher unemployment. The other thing that will sort of determine our futures will be not just the COVID, and hopefully that this is something that we can overcome in the coming months, but also the state of the global economy. And if the global economy is not robust, then it'll make our recovery that much more difficult. Today in Louisiana, some 273,000 people unemployed. We're at about 13.3% unemployment. That's a bit better than in April for us. In April it was 291,000 unemployed. So our task one is to sort of work to rebuild our shattered economy. And fortunately, there are steady hands here at the state. As Chris mentioned, I've been at the LED for going on 16 years now. I came into this department in January of '05, and in August of '05, Katrina wreaks havoc on our state. Not much shorter period after that, Rita rolls through Lake Charles in southwest Louisiana, and we've got a real challenge on our hands. We got Gulf Zone opportunity bonds that helped us repackage and rebuild Louisiana. Made some great investments with those, and have a strong fortified flood protection system around New Orleans today. But here we find ourselves in a much different kind of crisis, in that it's not just a segment of Louisiana. It's not just Louisiana or the U.S., but global in nature, as you know. But again, we have found a great strength in the way that we manage these operations because of Gustav, and because of Ike, and because of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and the floods that we had in all four corners of our state in 2016. So coming through this, we organize and set our sights on the things that we need to do to both immediately address the challenges, and then to become more resilient, which is not the same as becoming strong. It's resilient is more about being less vulnerable the next time you face a certain set of circumstances. So in that regard, I think that's the real mission that we'll talk about first with the Resilient Louisiana Commission. I'm honored to be serving as co-chair with Terry Sterling. The governor launched this initiative in April, and we're really assembled a strong working group, 18 commissioners on this. Not all from government, some from government, some private sector corporate leaders, some citizens, some healthcare professionals, bringing a diverse group of people together. And again, not just to rebuild Louisiana. I think Kaylee Barber said it after Katrina: if we build it back the way it was, we have failed. We want to build a stronger, more resilient state, and use the available resources to do that. So these 18 governing members are seated on the commission, and where we began to drill down is by identifying 15 key sectors of our economy and assigning each one of those sectors to task force leaders. Those task force leaders then assembled thought leaders, industry folks, private citizens, volunteers onto their individual task force to begin to look in depth at these particular segments of the Louisiana economy: tourism, restaurants, transportation, education and workforce. On and on it goes. You can see it all at opportunitylouisiana.com. But these 15 task force then create their committees, you would say, and go to work. So now what the RLC footprint looks like is more than 300 people. And there's a little bit of magic that's taken place in that. How and why I can't explain, but 4 months ago, I didn't know the first thing about Zoom or any of the other meeting platforms that are available online. But Zoom has been a primary workhorse for us. And all of a sudden, you could gather people from all over Louisiana on a screen, and they could have a conversation. They could follow an agenda. And having hosted a lot of meetings in Baton Rouge, or attended a lot of meetings in Baton Rouge for a lot of years, very unique that you could pull together people from all over the state and have these thought leaders and industry leaders involved in these conversations. And the other part of the magic, I think, was it just so happened that these people had a little bit of time on their hands. everybody's businesses had been disrupted, their personal lives had been disrupted, and it felt like good therapy to get involved and engaged on these task force activities. And so we've hosted and I've attended many of those meetings, and they've been an amazing array of folks that participate. It's sort of divided into two segments initially. The first thing that we reacted to was what we call Charge 1, which is, I'll speak to it in terms of first aid. When you arrive on the scene, if someone is injured, you want to do two things: stop the bleeding and clear the airway. So for Charge 1, arriving on the scene for the Resilience Commission, we began to address those things of an immediate nature so that we could provide the best guidance available to the governor as he was working to take us from what's known as phase 0, the lockdown, into a partial reopening at phase 1. Today we're in phase 2, trying not to go back to either phase 1 or lockdown. But this is important and appropriate steps on how you reopen the economy in a way that's safe both to employers and employees and the general public, following CDC guidelines, following very carefully what the White House has put out, a program called Reopen America, and to do it in a way that honored those directives and the science involved in those things. So around the 8th of May, a lot of information was provided to the governor, who on the 15th of May issued an executive order. And so we were able to guide areas around critical infrastructure, how to approach education and childcare, what are good general employee guidelines, what are good guidelines for employers, what areas of government support can be provided, where are the gaps. How about the small businesses that are so significantly impacted here, and other public health issues? So with all that, the task force had talked about all these things and made their initial reports. Those were consolidated and put into an appendix that accompanied a document that we issued on the 15th of May and is available to you online. But again, that didn't end our work with just some initial guidance going to the governor. But actually, we then pivoted to begin to embrace Charge 2, which is the establishment of that long-term game plan for a more resilient Louisiana going forward. The RLC is now focused fully on that Charge 2. On June 12th, those task force of talented folks submitted task force reports. You can think of them maybe as a term paper that you might have done in college or something. But today we have now more than 500 pages coming from, that's a total number, from the 15 task force. And we're working our way through those documents, taking a look at the emerging themes, things that we can make as recommendations to the community at large, to our state government, to our federal government. We're covering the entire waterfront of all the things that are impactful on our economy here. So that document should be as a working draft coming to the commission in the next 10 days or so. And it'll be accompanied by that same appendix of 500 pages of task force reports, and serve as a great foundation for some recommendations about strategies, policies, programs, initiatives that are critical to rebuilding and building a stronger state, rebuilding the economy, and supporting a more resilient Louisiana. It'll include government topics such as tax reform, how do we broaden the tax base, and look at incentive programs and other things that we need to do to make sure that we're modernize things, and that the programs that we've always used in the past still fit in a post-COVID world. One of the emerging themes has been around equity, ensuring that all people, especially low-income folks, rural communities, people of color, and vulnerable groups have the opportunity to benefit from the growth and opportunity that's going to be a part of going forward. And achieving equity requires not just erasing social and geographic kinds of disparities in opportunities and outcomes, but it's more than just a matter of social justice and morality. If we are able to upskill, retrain, educate, all those elements that go into creating a more vibrant workforce, we allow these individuals to gain more income, have better jobs, and move the entire state forward. At the same time, that there's fewer people that require care, and more people that are playing a role in the larger economy. So it's in a way speaking to poverty. If poverty was a city, it would be the biggest city in our state by a factor of 2. And it's a very far-reaching challenge. The United Way has issued a document. They call it the ALICE report, ALICE. That's asset limited, income constrained, and employed. It's working folks, but half of those households don't earn enough money to meet the cost of living in their own parish. And that's largely a factor of Louisiana having too many low-skilled jobs that are paid at a rate of under $20 an hour, almost half, or actually 2/3 of the jobs in our state fall into that category. So a real challenge there. How do we meet that challenge? One of the other things that the RLC takes up is around education and workforce, and we've touched on that a little bit here today. But going forward, we stand with Reset Louisiana and a number of the other organizations to make early childhood education a priority. Absolutely essential that they step off with that basis of getting their good education that only occurs when they arrive at school ready to learn. We will continue to focus on creating adult lifelong learning opportunities. The world's changed from when you got a high school degree or a college degree and you were set for life. Technology moves too fast. Industry and business require new computer skills, new learning opportunities that everyone in our society needs the upskilling. So continuing to emphasize where we can do that kind of delivery at our community colleges, at our four-year colleges, et cetera, will be an important part of this. Another important part of this, of course, is the investments in technology, broadband, software tools, things of that nature to increase those learning opportunities either at home or in the workplace. Governor Edwards has recently made this a priority, and you may have noted in late June that he announced he'll use $32 million of the $50 million in discretionary federal dollars for computers and improved internet access for public schools and students. Connectivity, which really is another way maybe of saying broadband, was another clearly emerging critical element that we need to address as a state. This was particularly impactful in rural areas that are underserved in broadband or broadband capacity. What happens is you become a desert. And I just don't think it was as noticed as prominently as it should have been, but that's what a crisis will do for you. It will illuminate your weaknesses. But when you think about a digital desert, you no longer have the ability to do telemedicine. You no longer have the ability to do e-commerce. You no longer have the ability to have distance learning. And look how important distance learning is, say in California, where they're talking about the Los Angeles area, where they won't go back to school. Distance learning is your alternative. And in parts of our state, and unfortunately in too many parts of our state, that's not even an option right now. So we'll make some strong recommendations, and I know it's a priority, and the federal government is affording funding right now for ways to make broadband more robust. Certainly the quality of life and health, the disparity in healthcare certainly has been very noticeable in terms of the outcomes of this pandemic. The governor did create the Health Equity Task Force to make some recommendations. Certainly the Resilient Louisiana Commission is working closely with them to be fully cognizant of all of their work and seeking to integrate those recommendations into our platform as well. But it reaches across healthcare, telehealth being very, very important ways to reach more people, make more impact, and support health outcomes and promotion. Pretty broad sector there that we could go on about, but small business support has certainly been a key feature at Louisiana Economic Development for quite some time. In 2019, we won a national award, gold level, for our suite of small business services. Was really glad to have that on the shelf as we encounter this pandemic, but we've had to do additional, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but providing support for small businesses now critically important to our recovery, and creating those pathways that help our small businesses reduce red tape, look at occupational licensing requirements, and how we are more inclusive in all of the above is an important goal. So overall, we are crafting what I feel is the people's report. We're very focused on a wide range of opportunities and critical sectors that'll support a more robust economy going forward, and it ranges again across a real wide variety of those 15 economic topics. So look for that. You'll see that report roll out sometime before the end of the month. The working draft will probably be in the hands of the commission, and it'll become a public document. You can see all the activities and all the meetings of the Resilient Louisiana Commission and those task force at opportunitylouisiana.com. Just click on the Resilient Louisiana tab there. They are public meetings, so they are noticed. Minutes are kept, recordings are made, and a great deal of great work that we're capturing in that way. So now I'm going to pivot a little bit to Louisiana Economic Development, some of the activities that we have ongoing, some of the COVID response that we've executed. Very proud of the team here that's worked alongside with the administration and the legislature to get important things done. And that really started with immediately beginning to marshal all the resources available. Those are federal, those are state, and arrayed again at opportunitylouisiana.com, our website. Click on the COVID-19 resource guide there. So putting people in touch with SBA or CDC guidelines, all the different federal agencies and important elements of information there, combining those with state resources, and then again back to regional was one of the things that we quickly marshaled. Seeing that all our small businesses would be struggling for some time, we joined with the Louisiana Bankers Association and LPFA, Louisiana Public Facilities Authority, to roll out a $50 million loan fund that you didn't have to go to Washington or anywhere else to get approvals with. Just go to your local bank and work with your local banker. And this $50 million fund is allocated out to local banks. They speak up for $1 million or $2 million piece of it and then use it with their clients. We still have capacity. So if that is interest to you or your stakeholders, please let them know that program will continue to operate through the end of the year. Essentially what it does is for companies with under 100 employees, it makes a loan of up to $100,000 available. For your first 6 months, no interest. For your first 6 months, no payments. And then after that, you can figure out the repayment schedule with the banker and take up to 5 years to do that. The loan rate is 3.5%. So it should be a very attractive vehicle. There are not restrictions. We encourage that to go for payroll, but it's not a requirement. We're very pleased with the payroll protection program, PPP, with the SBA that you've heard so much about, that gives forgiveness of that loan in the event that it's deployed in the way that you follow the rules, that it goes to either your rent, your utilities, or your workforce. And that's great. The SBA also offered economic disaster injury loans, EDIL, out there for companies. And we're aware that more than 30,000 Louisiana companies have taken advantage of these federal programs. That's exactly what we would want them to do. And that's resulted in about $9 billion in capacity being afforded to Louisiana companies that are going to certainly be instrumental in continuing to support the reemergence of our economy. But in our toolkit, a smaller figure, $50 million is not a lot. But in this case, the way that it's so flexible, the way that it's going to be there even after maybe we've utilized all the available tools in the toolkit at the federal level to support our small businesses is an important opportunity that we're taking advantage of. The next one we rolled out rather robustly was around e-commerce. And this is another tab at opportunitylouisiana.com if you or your stakeholders have an interest. But the idea around this is that for many companies, you have an online presence perhaps, and that's great. But there were a lot of small businesses impacted out there that had no storefront, electronic storefront out there for access by their client base. They couldn't get in touch with their clients couldn't place orders with them, and that just added to the misery factor of all of this. So what we did was engage with Shopify to help companies that have not yet gone digital and help them establish a way to get their wares or services acknowledged and paid for online so that they could continue to participate in commerce. There's seminars. We work with Shopify. We're going to work with others. It was not limited in that regard. We just know that they do a great job of holding the hand of a new entrepreneur's experience up online. And also for those that do have an online presence and are quite sure that it's working for them as robustly as they would like. There's also that same engagement. Shopify is willing to help take a look at your program and suggest how you can improve it. There's other seminars and webinars that we're achieving up there. We're partnered with our small business development centers that are state/federal agencies that are out there to help small businesses so that they can also give counseling and help people with their online marketing presence. So to expand the footprint of e-commerce in Louisiana was another one of our many responses to the pandemic crisis that's impacting us. Another element that I'm in the midst of working on very hard right now is also in developing a portfolio of grant applications. Certainly from time to time, the Economic Development Administration, that's a subdivision of the Department of Commerce. Our regional headquarters is over in Austin, Texas. And from time to time, we've been able to secure some funding for various projects. But recently with the CARES Act, Congress afforded $1.5 billion to the Economic Development Administration. So they've really put a lot of capacity there. And shame on us if we don't go after it. If I do the math and take 50 states and $1.5 billion coming from Congress, I would hope that my share of that might be as much as 30 million. And so we are partnering with various organizations in a number of lanes. We have currently, I think, issued 4 applications to Austin. I've also got 2 additional applications in front of the Department of Defense to help some projects around Fort Polk. The military being a critical economic driver for our state as well. So the lesson here is that for our businesses, our small businesses, and our state should all be seeking to optimize the amount of assistance that we can secure from those available resources. Again, shame on us if we don't make those efforts to take down those resources and position our state through these effective investments to do better in the future. So sort of a glimpse at a number of the activities that we're involved in right now, doing this sort of a shift to a more virtual small business environment that COVID requires. We continue to do our roundtables. That is a great leadership activity for our small businesses as well. We're just doing those through Zoom or these other online meeting platforms that are so helpful. And I hope you're utilizing them sort of as we are today. I think you'll find that they can be a very powerful tool for your organization or your company. And in some cases, I think families are making their calls this way as well. I don't want it to be all sort of a doom and gloom. We're in a crisis and we're at 13% unemployment. There's a lot of reasons that we can be very proud of our state and where we are currently positioned to do well in the future. Throughout this pandemic, our chemical plants have continued to operate. They were never closed. In fact, the governor did not close very much of the economy at all, in that construction activities continued. All our industrial activities continued for essential workers in all the businesses that they were involved with. They continued. It's just been under some circumstances that have caused restrictions, et cetera. But beyond the chemical industry, our refineries. Louisiana is one of the top states in the nation in both natural gas production and oil production. I know that the price isn't where we want it per barrel right now, but it won't stay there. That's the one thing you can be sure of, that over time that's going to change. Louisiana's 17 oil refineries account for nearly 1/5 of the nation's refining capacity, and we can process 3.3 million barrels of crude oil per day. This is going to continue to be an important part of our economy. The LNG story, we are exporting gas to the world right now, and have had and continue to have major construction projects in the billions of dollars related to LNG, largely in Southwest Louisiana, but we're seeing some of those in Southeast Louisiana now as well. Our agricultural economy will remain strong. Our forestry, the way that we supply the paper industry, you see all those Amazon boxes going out. That's good for Louisiana. We make those boxes. We make linerboard. Our ports, more than 30 ports are right across our state, are going to continue to be very essential to moving commodities and cargoes, both in the United States and globally. And so, again, these are things that power our economy. We've got great advanced manufacturing operations here. Boeing's building the Space Launch System to take man back to the moon and beyond. On top of that Space Launch System sits the Orion space capsule made by Lockheed Martin. Guess what? We're making that in East Orleans Parish as well. And so you can go to Oceaneering down in Morgan City. That's submersibles that do a lot of inspections, and just the high-tech robotics associated with that. Or take a company like Stuller over in Lafayette that makes ring settings. But again, with additive manufacturing, that's sort of a 3D printing, only using metals. There's incredible, very high-tech operations that continue to succeed in Louisiana, and we continue to build the workforce and educational partnerships around these stories, both in new and existing companies, to continue to power that success. Here in 2020, again, under some trying circumstances, we've had more than 19 project wins, securing about $462 million of new investment coming to Louisiana, and some 1,400 new direct jobs, 3,400 indirect jobs associated with that. And again, as Chris touched on, 2,000 retained jobs that we can point to because of successful engagements, and taking care of the jobs that we have here in Louisiana is a critical part of our mission. We do a lot as regards business expansion and retention. We've been in close contact with our economic driver companies. We've got them all mapped out in all 8 regions of the state. And we provided survey data to them, and they responded to us, and we were able to keep a picture of what's going on in the economic driver cycle and companies across our state, and provide that information back to the administration and others to be helpful in planning. But we're seeing most of the are taking advantage. 74% of our companies applied to the SBA PPP program. We're glad that there's robust participation in that. And we're also seeing a lot of activity in the pipeline. We're in contact with more than 210 companies currently discussing projects in various stages of development. They represent a great, strong number of new direct jobs, and billions of dollars in capital to invest. Certainly we won't win all those projects, but we're going to take a real aggressive approach, and we're going to win our share. We are recognized as your agency, taxpayer-supported agency of government, Louisiana Economic Development, as one of the top performing agencies of our kind in the South. I believe we're going to be ranked #1 this year when the rankings come out, because we had such a strong showing in 2019. We continue to have the best workforce development program in the nation that we utilize to attract, secure, and support these companies that come to Louisiana. It's not a set and forget. We keep the community colleges, the technical colleges, and the four-year universities engaged and involved with economic development and with these companies to assure that we've set the stage for great success going forward. So you've heard the primary missions here: recruit, retain, and work with our existing economic driver companies. Do a lot for small businesses, and that's for the most part our three-legged stool that really keeps a vibrant economy in the rebuilding stage now, but certainly arguably was in great shape at the end of 2019. So let's talk about, again, maybe just a brief look over the horizon, and then I'll have a few minutes for some questions and answers. But around the world right now, economies are cautiously reopening. And I think businesses are sort of keeping one eye on the here and now, what's my current situation, but are also trying to think long and hard about what's shaping up for them. What are the opportunities for them in that reset? And certainly you'll observe a number of trends. One of them, I think, the Microsoft CEO, Ms. Nadella, has recently got a quote attributed to her saying that we've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. You look at the stock market for a company like Zoom and see what's happened. Certainly all things digitally related are moving forward. That's just a major trend line that's out there, and where it intersects your company or your stakeholders today is something that you should be thoughtful around. This is a time when we're seeing high-tech players acquiring the pieces and parts of their organization that they think they need to drive it forward in the future e-commerce systems. You're seeing e-commerce leaders, Amazon and others, unleashing massive spending on infrastructure and capacity building. This home delivery is not going to go backwards. It's only going to become more robust going forward. There's a lot of things that are making it hard to make decisions right now, largely around the uncertainty that the virus crisis brings to us, trying to get decisions made against a backdrop of how much risk do I want to take on? How committed am I when I make this decision in case this virus doesn't get under control? Sort of time is of the essence for the thinking around these things to move for corporate. So corporate leadership, I would suggest right now, is under a lot of stress in various ways to either take advantage of new opportunities that are emerging, or in traditional industries and restaurant industries and others that are being hard hit by the COVID, how they can best navigate their new set of circumstances. One of the other trends, of course, around healthcare, and we talked a bit about today the burden of people that have these underlying health conditions, be it diabetes, hypertension, pulmonary disorders, obesity. All of these are factors that play into what needs to be a more resilient state of a community and of a workforce. And there are new techniques of home monitoring and telemedicine that are being arrayed against that. And it's not only important for an improved quality of life, which it certainly would be, but it's also a way to protect the workforce and grow the economy and save the economy a tremendous amount of money. We know that on a federal level, that would be in the trillions of dollars. and on the Louisiana level, that would be hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's a part of it. Reimagining the workforce is an important up in the air factor right now. Executives do want to bring people back. They want to do so safely and sustain that. But they're also discovering that a number of their employees can be very effective without coming to the office at all and doing the telework approach. So how this impacts all the features going forward in terms of workforce development, in terms of the kinds of capacity that we need to have, how good is your broadband, a large number of challenges there. But certainly we're seeing that as a feature. One other noteworthy element is that the cyber attacks have all increased during this. I guess just like other criminals, these criminals take advantage of confusion and of opportunity, and you hear of them hijacking all kinds of federal government assistance and other things of that nature. So cybersecurity is something that we're gaining a strong reputation for being a leader in our state. Remains an important topic and one that we want to get engaged with. I'll close just by saying that in many ways we know we're sort of in the early stages of all the economic fallout that's going to be associated with this COVID-19 pandemic in our state. But at the same time, we've got a very clear vision on pathways forward, on the things that we can do. We do know, as I articulated a little while ago, that our state has a lot of fundamentals that are not being impacted by this crisis. Now, we're going to be hurting in tourism for some time, but we will get back on our feet there. But with our chemical manufacturing, our refineries, our strong agricultural economy, the way that we ship and move by rail and ports, all the goods that are essential across America, we're an important state, and we'll have a strong economic impact in that regard. So no reason to hang our heads. We're going to just muscle up and move forward and do so in a way that acknowledges these new and emerging important features of healthcare and equity. So with that, I'll close and be open for some questions or comments if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. That was awesome. We do have a bunch of questions. The first question from Karen Profita. I'm working on a major economic development project. What is the best way to reach out to LED and the Resilient Louisiana Commission?
So lots of ways, opportunitylouisiana.com, but you can reach out directly to me at Pierson@la.gov. I'll be glad to get a project manager in touch with you, and let's do some good things.
Okay. The next question is from Phyllis Mouton. How is LED encouraging the Chambers of Commerce leadership to pay attention to the changing demographics and embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion in the strategic plans, principles, and goals? And do you know if they are aware of the Equity of Resilience initiative?
Beautiful question, comment, statement from Phyllis, a colleague for many years, and has played a great leadership role in our state, and really pleased to respond to that in that we are moving forward with robust discussions around equity and inclusion and opportunity. And she correctly points out that the chambers are an important part of this equation. And I was fortunate to manage a chamber for a number of years in my early career before I came to state government, and served as the state president for the Chamber of Commerce Association. So I have a full understanding. A lot of times in economic development, we're working with new clients or existing clients, but not so much with the small businesses. But we began to change that dynamic 4 years ago. And now we have a great way of outreach electronically to 40 plus chambers around our state. We message them with information that's critical to their small business stakeholders, but we're also invited them, and they had full participation in the activities around the Resilient Louisiana Commission. I think where you'll see the underpinnings for the importance of equity, and they're fully included, and they're eager and anxious to participate in that regard, Phyllis. So, and anytime you want to get back on the team too, please let me know.
Okay, the next question is from Laura Lindsay. Starting up schools is a big part of restarting Louisiana. She has 3 grandsons who are brothers and attend the same school. From the information she's seen, 2 of the 3 will wear masks. How will they be able to tamp down the pandemic and still move forward with school without one another, with another upswing in the cases of COVID?
Yeah, so there's, I think maybe just today, some guidance released around school restarting. Certainly the educational leaders have been huddled with the healthcare leaders and others to try to figure out all the things that are a part of this. I don't have it at my fingertips, but I think you would find it even in the Advocate today. And then there'll be places on the websites to get this information, but they're doing everything from not allowing just visitors to school. They want to limit anyone coming to the school just to be absolutely essential, or the students. So reducing congregation, moving the desks apart, the masking, the hygiene, a lot of features, because I think everybody recognizes how important it is to get the schools reopened, but also to do it in a way that protects health.
And we have another question from Chris Delia. How does our state position itself vis-a-vis the Green New Deal?
You're not allowed to use Green New Deal. But essentially, there are a lot of initiatives today, and we're really pleased to be on the cutting edge of a number of what we'll call green initiatives. One for us here at LED is around carbon capture. That's a new feature, not brand new across America, but if you look at some of the plants that we have, they do generate a lot of CO2. And now we have the technology to gather that CO2. It so happens that we have some important CO2 pipelines running in our state, so we can easily tap into some CO2 pipelines. And here's something I didn't know. Okay, so what is carbon capture? It means you're going to store it somewhere. It turns out that you store it largely way underground under a water table that acts as that barrier that keeps the carbon from leaking back up. But we're doing more with solar farms around the state, wind energy initiative that's coming out for Gulf winds, and certain carbon capture is a part of that. So our green initiatives here in Louisiana are strong and vibrant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. We've really enjoyed your presentation today. A lot of great information, and don't be a stranger. Come back to Rotary anytime.
Thank you for hosting me today.
Great. So just want to remind everybody, next week, July 22nd, our speaker will be Kenneth Graham. He's given his thoughts on the 2020 hurricane season. Do want to remind everybody to wear your mask, be safe, and 2 weeks from now, the 29th, is the Coach O meeting. Yes, we will do the Coach O meeting. So again, put your mask on, be safe, and have a great day.
Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas, Collins, LLC,